Hi, I'm Mort Cooper. Change Your Voice, Change Your Life. In studio with me is Dr. John Curtis. He's the co-host. We've been talking about why voices fail. And we've had some interesting discussion about the treatment of patients I've seen while I was at UCLA Medical Center. Fascinating journey and a challenging odyssey. Do you want to recall or do you want to ask questions about what we were talking about?
No, I'll just ask you, just a couple questions about your discovery of the contact ulcer granuloma and how it's treated. And you claim that you were working with a very respected, fine, just competent surgeon named Henry J. Rubin, who had actually treated contact ulcer granuloma 17 times, 17 different surgeries.
Right.
And the patient was exasperated.
The word could be devastated, but Henry became...
litigious almost.
Yeah. Henry Rubin is deceased. He was one of the finest ear, nose, and throat doctors I've ever worked with, a straight arrow, a wonderful surgeon, gifted. And he apparently was of the view that a surgical procedure for contact ulcer granuloma was appropriate. But he had a patient whom he had done 17 surgeries on, and the patient was suicidal. He was strangled. He had pain when he tried to talk. Even when breathing, he had pain because a contact ulcer is like between my two thumbs. In the middle, that's the posterior third of the vocal folds. And the anterior portion over here has one kind of tissue and a different kind of tissue between these cartilages. There are 4 paired muscles in the larynx, and one is singular, and the one is singular between these cartilages.
You get a little technical right now.
Yeah.
I think you're losing people.
I'm going to get very straight on this. So you can have problems if you have that growth, and the growth creates pain because it moves from one angle, one cartilage to the other, and it creates a pit or fossa, and it's on denuded tissue, which means that there's no
it's like
safety
raw
net.
tissue, right?
Yeah, raw tissue. It's a condition that one woman by the name of Georgiana Peacher figured out for the first time in the history ever in the medical field. She's did a study for the PhD, and she found that by changing the pitch, raising the pitch of voice, she found a cure to this condition. Nobody ever had reported a single cure ever before her dissertation. And it's a fascinating study. I knew about her, and when I was at UCLA Medical Center on the staff to begin with, I used her material and followed through, and sure enough, it did wonders. At the same time when I was on the staff, we had a young man, the Russian, and he talked like this. And he would say, what is the pain I have? He always used the technique, and I developed the from the Russian. And by raising the pitch using Georgiana Peach's approach, the contact ulcer on this area of the arytenoid, banging into the other area, which was raw, disappeared, and the strangle disappeared, the pain disappeared, and he had a perfectly normal voice. And now he had a baritone voice instead of talking, what I say. And I developed the technique by this.
Well, that was a method that you used in order to give the voice a voice lift, a little bit of a lift?
Yes, very simple,
okay.
natural.
So what did you do before your Ruski patient, Ruski, what did you do before to raise the pitch?
Well, I work with a lot of patients, but the Russian didn't have the ear. And we had success with other contact ulcer patients.
But how did you raise pitch before the Russian clued you in to use the...
We used the piano at that time, in 1961.
Oh, really?
It was dated, and I'm a musician. I play the piano, and I take them up to medical lounge and show them the range. I can hear what they were doing and raise the pitch 3-4 notes.
And you didn't really have a technique at that
point
before that?
It was archaic, and it was very, very primitive. And some patients had musical background, others had the ability to do what I wanted. Sometimes they were a little slow, but they can get out of the lower throat and get up into the face, raising the pitch in the contact ulcer granuloma, and the fossa disappeared. Here's the Russian. What do you want me to do? Every time he said a phrase or a sentence, he would say, and talk down here, and the pain was killing him, he said. So I found the technique, and I used it, and I reported in books and across the country. It's a wonderful technique. It's natural. Today they're using implants of cadaver skin to put into the vocal folds to create a voice lift, the same voice lift that the does naturally, and it's free, and anybody can use it.
I think Peak Wu uses the cadaver grafts.
Yes, in New York City.
Yeah, in New York City, and it's a very sophisticated procedure because I understand that that tissue is highly refined. It comes from a very high-tech sort of pharmaceutical biotech company, and he's very impressed with it. But then there's a fellow by the name of Robert Sadeloff. I think you know who he
They're
is.
nose and throat doctors. He's in Philadelphia.
And Sadeloff, who I believe used to be the editor of the journal Voice.
He is
He's still the editor?
He is the editor of the Journal of Voice.
Okay, that's the Journal of the American Speech and Hearing Association.
No, it's not.
What is it, the journal?
No, it's a journal at...
freestanding journal?
No, yes, it's freestanding. And the medics basically run it.
It's a prestigious journal, to say the least.
It's one of the most prestigious.
Okay, but here's the part that I think is interesting to people, is that he's telling people now to add something to the vocal cords. He thinks that aging vocal cords are responsible for deterioration in voice, and he said that if you add collagen back into the vocal cords, just like you would do in your face, like a cosmetic surgeon would, then you can in effect rejuvenate or transform the voice into one that's much more youthful. Is that your experience?
No. No, I think it detracts from the ability of the individual to use the right voice when you put a substance into the vocal folds, because people have difficulty using the right voice to begin with. All they have to do is go, if you're talking all the way in the lower throat, and that's what he's talking about, where the voice doesn't have a younger sound or a bright sound or an open sound. Just go, and talk up here instead of all the way down here. Another way, which of course makes it obvious that you don't need collagen, you don't need bone and stents and so forth that they put in. Incidentally, I'm going to come back to what I'm saying in just a moment. One of the finest ear, nose, and throat doctors in the country, Gerald Burke, the chairperson of the head and neck division, put in stents for Pete Wilson, who was then involved in running for the nomination for the presidency. Lost his voice, basically. He had to have the stents taken out after the third go-around, and that's what putting something in does. Now, going back to the answer to how to get a normal voice, it's the C-spot, and the C-spot is it's called the instant voice press or the Cooper C-spot. Dr. Curtis, just take your finger and put it at the bottom of your breastbone, and with your lips closed, go and point to where you feel the resonance.
I feel a buzz right up in the nose.
It's as simple as that. You just got a voice lift. It's God-given, it's natural, it's wondrous, and it's amazing. So you're talking down here and you go, it's telling you where your natural, full, easy voice is. In seconds, you don't need any injection into the vocal folds, whether it's collagen, paraffin, Teflon, silicone, gel foam, stents, and anything else.
So you don't really add anything into when you treat patients. I mean, you're not really inserting anything into their vocal cords or adding something. You're actually retraining them to give them a voice lift.
It's already there. It's God-given, and it's waiting for somebody to tap into it. This answer is so simple. A fellow by the name of Occam, you know who Occam was?
William of Occam. Well, but people.
And what did Occam say?
Look,
it's called Occam's razor.
Yeah, and he
what did he say?
Look, Occam was a very simple guy. He said, look, give me a simple explanation. It's preferred over the ones that are more mysterious and esoteric.
Yeah, he wasn't a simple guy. He was sophisticated, who realized the simple answer is the best answer. And the one that's simple is you take the finger and put, and your voice goes right up into the face. You don't need any injection into the vocal folds with any of the substances.
Like some people will say, look, that's fine, I can hit my C-spot, the voice pops up, but then as soon as I start talking again, I can't keep going around jiggling below my breastbone in the C-spot and going,
yeah,
you know, when you're in regular conversation.
Yeah, it's very simple. One, two,
so
three.
How do you get the voice to stay elevated?
You get the patient to tune into the voice. Use a tape machine, and you have them just on the tape machine, one, two, and say, one, two. You get them to put the voice up in the face and hear themselves, because they don't hear themselves as they actually are. And it's very simple to change the voice. It takes a little doing to hold on to it.
They learn to speak, with the elevation and pitch.
It's very minor.
And yet the patient doesn't hear it as minor. They hear it as very major. In many instances, they're horrified by the new voice.
That's
they don't
correct.
like the new sound of the voice.
No, they don't.
Now, did Georgiana Peacher discover the voice image back in 1947?
No.
Did she deal with the voice image?
No.
Did a fellow by the name of Virgil Anderson at Stanford University deal with the voice image?
He mentioned the image as a put-off. He did mention it.
Okay, so
in his textbook on the principles of voice.
In his
training the speaking voice.
best-selling book, The Principles of the Speaking Voice.
The Principles of Training the Speaking Voice, right?
Principles of Training the Speaking Voice. Anderson did mention the image.
Yes.
But did he really comprehend the extent to which?
No.
Because Anderson, from my understanding, was a bit of an academic. Is that?
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't particularly oriented toward clinical work.
No.
He didn't like the interaction with the patients. Now, part of that interaction is beating your head against the wall, isn't it? I mean, there is a natural inclination for the patients to fight you when you're trying to help them.
Oh, yes.
Now, why do patients?
Well, why do people, when they're
fight?
drowning, fight the lifeguard?
Well, they actually swim to the bottom rather than go to the top.
Why do they fight?
Freud has an explanation for that. He calls that the death instinct.
Okay. There's another thing that Freud talked about, resistance.
Yeah.
People do not like to change. They're habituated to what they're doing, and they want to continue that. So if you're talking all the way down here, and somebody tells you and you use the C-spine, goes up there, or you say as though you agree with somebody sincerely and spontaneously, you don't like that sound, and you wonder why, when you talk this way, you're going from doctor to doctor, and they're telling you it's reflux-oriented, you have reflux, and that's why you have this raspy voice. And so you try reflux drugs, and God bless you if it works. I don't find it working, and the patients taking the reflux tell me it doesn't work for them. Or they're looking to have some substance, as Peek Wu, a well-known ear, nose, and throat doctor in New York City, is now putting a cadaver skin pulverized into the vocal folds to get a voice lift, to make your voice brighter and fuller and richer. And Sadloff, he's a very gifted surgeon. He's a very well-known and famed ear, nose, and throat doctor. He is putting in collagen, but they're not getting to the source of why the voice is not sounding right.
I read about Sadloff's techniques not that long ago, and yes, I read about it in the New York Times. The New York Times is an interesting publication because just a little while ago, a year or so ago...
You read about it in the New York Times?
Yes,
Sadloff?
I read about Sadloff. And I also...
I didn't read about Sadloff in the New York Times.
Oh, you didn't?
No, where did you read it?
Was that USA Today, or was it the... I know we read about Sadloff.
No, that was a newspaper in New York, a not well-known newspaper.
Oh, maybe it was the New York Post.
That carried Peek Wu, and
they talk about Sadloff and Peek Wu in new techniques and the use of cadaver
No, I
skin.
think that was another article for Robert Sadloff countering what Peek Wu was doing. They're fighting about putting implants into the vocal folds, folks. They're medicalizing our voices. And they're saying the reason our voices fail is because, why?
Well, this is the title of the show today. They're saying, look, this is a medical condition. The vocal cords wear out, and essentially they need to be plumped up. So if we can,
like that.
If we can plump them up with collagen, then
with cadaver skin.
They claim that they can rejuvenate. I mean, make the person's voice sound more youthful.
But now, you can do that in seconds by just raising the pitch of your voice with or with the C spot.
Now,
I don't understand why they're doing what they're doing.
That is that you have patients that do come in which develop what is called geriatric voice. Now, isn't geriatric voice a condition that is similar in many